The massive crystal chamber deep inside the council station buzzed with hundreds of different voices. Aliens of every shape and size filled the floating platforms that circled the center stage. Some looked like giant insects with metal wings. Others were made of living rock that glowed with inner light. A few were just clouds of gas held together by energy fields. At the center of it all sat the High Council of Nine. These were the oldest and most powerful species in the galaxy. They had ruled for thousands of years, deciding which planets lived and which ones died. Today they were talking about a small blue planet on the edge of nowhere. "The humans of Earth present no threat," said Council Member Vex Prime, his voice echoing through translation devices. His species looked like walking trees with too many eyes. "Our scouts confirm they are barely Class 7. They still burn fossil fuels and use metal rockets to reach their own moon." The other council members made sounds of agreement. Class 7 was almost nothing in galactic terms. It meant the species had just learned to split atoms and had primitive computers. Most council species were Class 15 or higher. "The Sol system has rich mineral deposits," continued another council member. This one was Zarako of the Hegemony Trade Consortium. Her blue skin sparkled with tiny lights that showed her emotions. Right now, the lights showed greed. 3 gas giants perfect for fuel extraction. An asteroid belt full of rare metals. "And that star puts out excellent energy." "What about the humans?" asked a voice from the back platforms. It was a small delegate from one of the newer member species. Zarako's lights flickered with amusement. "They will be relocated to preserve galactic harmony. We have found them a nice Class M world in the outer rim. Basic atmosphere, simple life forms. Perfect for a primitive species." The small delegate pressed on. "But Earth is their homeworld. Our own laws say." "Our laws protect sentient species," Vex Prime cut him off with a wave of his branch-like arm. "The humans barely qualify. They still fight wars over imaginary lines on their planet. They poison their own air and water. They are children playing with dangerous toys." Around the chamber, most aliens nodded in agreement. A few looked uncomfortable, but they stayed quiet. No one wanted to anger the High Council. "The decision is made," announced the chief council member. Her species was ancient beyond measure, looking like a floating jellyfish made of pure energy. "The Hegemony will send a standard relocation fleet to Sol system. 12 ships should be more than enough." "Only 12? The small delegate sounded shocked. Zarako's lights now showed complete confidence. "Our scouts watched them for months. Their most powerful weapons are nuclear missiles that travel slower than our cargo ships. Their space program uses chemical rockets that barely reach orbit. What could they possibly do against ships that cross star systems in days?" The chief council member's energy patterns showed she was getting impatient. "The humans will be given standard notice. 72 hours to prepare for relocation. Any who resist will be subdued with minimum force. The Hegemony promises no unnecessary harm." "But what if they have hidden technology?" the small delegate asked. "Some species develop faster than our scouts can track." This time, several council members made sounds that meant laughter in their different languages. "Impossible," said Vex Prime. "We have been watching the galaxy for 10,000 years. No species jumps from Class 7 to dangerous levels without us knowing. The humans are exactly what they appear to be. Clever animals who learn to use fire." The chief council member pulsed with finality. "The vote is called. All in favor of Hegemony Resolution 847 Delta." Lights around the chamber flashed green. A few stayed neutral yellow. Only the small delegate's light stayed red for no. "Motion passes," the chief council member announced. "The Hegemony fleet will depart within the week. Expected mission time 6 standard days. The Sol system will be cleared for industrial development before the next council session." As the meeting ended and aliens began floating away to their ships, Zarako felt very pleased with herself. The Sol system would make her species incredibly rich. The humans would be quietly moved to their new world where they could play with sticks and stones to their heart's content. She had no way of knowing that, at that very moment, deep in Earth's asteroid belt, something was watching her fleet's departure through sensors that should not have existed. The Hegemony fleet was impressive by any measure. 12 massive ships, each over 2 kilometers long. They could carry entire cities' worth of beings and equipment. Their energy shields could stop anything short of a supernova. Their weapons could crack moons. Admiral Cosvel stood on the bridge of the lead ship, watching the blue dot of Earth grow larger on his screens. He was old for his species, with silver scales covering his reptilian body. He had led hundreds of relocation missions over his long career. "Status report," he commanded. "All ships reporting ready, Admiral," said his second-in-command. "Long-range sensors show the human space is quiet. No military vessels detected. A few primitive satellites and space stations, nothing threatening. Any response to our warning message?" "Negative, sir. We broadcast the standard relocation notice 3 days ago. Radio silence from Earth since then." Admiral Coswell nodded. This was normal. Most primitive species either panicked and sent desperate pleas for mercy, or they went completely silent. The humans had chosen silence. "Sir," called out the sensor officer, "I am detecting some unusual energy readings from the outer planets." "Unusual how?" "The power outputs are very high, sir. But the readings do not match any known human technology. It might be natural phenomena. Gas giant storms can create strange energy signatures." The Admiral was not worried. His ships had sensors that could detect a campfire from across a solar system. If there was any real threat, they would know about it long before they got close. "Continue on course," he ordered. "All ships maintain standard formation. This should be a simple operation." Behind him, his crew worked at their stations with practiced efficiency. Most of them were young and had never seen combat. Relocation missions were usually given to newer crews for training. After all, what could go wrong when dealing with a species that still used wheels for transportation? As the fleet moved deeper into the Sol system, Admiral Coswell looked forward to another successful mission. In 3 days, the humans would be safely relocated and the system would belong to the hegemony. His career record would remain perfect. He had no idea that every sensor reading his ship was taking was being watched and analyzed by minds that worked very differently from his own. Minds that had spent the last 50 years preparing for exactly this moment. In the cold darkness between the planets, things that looked like asteroids and space debris were slowly turning toward the approaching fleet. Ancient human satellites that should have been dead and drifting were powering up systems that drew energy from sources the hegemony had never dreamed of. And deep beneath the surface of Earth's moon, in chambers that stretched for kilometers in every direction, Admiral Sarah Chen stood before a wall of screens showing every ship in the approaching fleet. "Status report," she said quietly. "All platforms online and ready," came the reply from her tactical officer. "Stealth systems holding. They have no idea we are here." "Perfect," Admiral Chen said. "Let them get a little closer. We want to make sure none of them escape to warn the Council." The trap was set. Now they just had to wait for the enemy to walk into it. Admiral Coswell felt uneasy as his fleet moved deeper into the Sol system. Everything looked normal on the sensors, but something felt wrong. In his many years of military service, he had learned to trust his instincts. "Sir, we are now passing the asteroid belt," reported his navigation officer. "Still no response from Earth. All scans show the system is completely quiet." The Admiral studied his tactical display. Thousands of asteroids drifted in their ancient orbits just as they had for millions of years. A few showed signs of human mining operations, but nothing recent. Everything appeared exactly as their scouts had reported. "Too quiet," he muttered under his breath. "Sir?" asked his second-in-command. "Nothing, Lieutenant. Continue on course." But Admiral Coswell could not shake the feeling that they were being watched. His scales tingled with an ancient warning that something predatory was nearby. On Earth's moon, Admiral Sarah Chen watched the alien fleet move past the first ring of hidden weapons platforms. The enemy ships were so confident, they had not even raised their shields. Their sensors were pointed forward toward Earth, completely missing the threats all around them. "Range to target?" she asked quietly. "Optimal firing position in 18 minutes, replied her weapons officer. "All platforms report ready to fire on your command." Admiral Chen nodded. 50 years of preparation had led to this moment. 50 years of her species working together like never before, building weapons and defenses that should have been impossible for a Class 7 civilization. The aliens thought humans were primitive. They were about to learn how wrong they were. "Sir," the panic in the sensor officer's voice made Admiral Coswell spin around. "Multiple energy spikes throughout the system. High-energy contacts appearing everywhere." "What?" Admiral Coswell rushed to the sensor station. The display showed dozens of red warning symbols scattered across the asteroid belt and outer planets. "Where did those come from?" "Unknown, sir. They were not there 30 seconds ago." Before the Admiral could respond, space around his fleet exploded with deadly light. The first attack came from weapons hidden inside hollowed-out asteroids. Tungsten rods, accelerated to incredible speeds by magnetic coils, slammed into the alien ships like the fist of an angry god. The rods punched through energy shields that could stop nuclear weapons as if they were paper. Admiral Cosvel watched in horror as his third ship simply came apart under the impact. Metal hull plates the size of buildings flew away into space as the ship's spine snapped in half. "Return fire! All ships return fire!" he shouted, but there was nothing to shoot at. The asteroids that had fired on them looked exactly like all the other asteroids in the belt. The enemy weapons had gone silent again, hiding among millions of pieces of space rock. "Sir, massive energy signature from the gas giant." Admiral Cosvel looked at the tactical display and felt his blood turn cold. Something huge was moving away from Jupiter's moon system, something that had been hiding in the shadow of the giant planet. The object was the size of a small moon, but it was clearly artificial. As it moved into the light, the Admiral could see it was covered with weapon ports and shield generators. The humans had built a mobile battle station and hidden it in their own solar system. "How is this possible?" he whispered. His answer came in the form of energy beams that reached across millions of kilometers to strike his ships. The weapons were unlike anything in his experience. They seemed to bend space itself, hitting targets that should have been impossible to reach at such distances. "Shields failing on ships 7 and 11, reported his tactical officer. "Admiral, we need to retreat." "Retreat where?" Admiral Cosvel looked at his display and realized they were surrounded. Energy signatures were appearing all over the system. Behind them, ahead of them, above and below. The humans had turned their entire solar system into a trap. More asteroids revealed themselves as weapons platforms. Satellites that looked like space debris came to life and began firing. Even Earth's moon was opening up like a flower, revealing massive gun ports that had been hidden beneath the surface. "Sir, incoming transmission from Earth," reported the communications officer. "Put it on screen." The face that appeared was human, but not what Admiral Cosvel expected. This was not a primitive savage begging for mercy. The woman on the screen wore a crisp military uniform and looked at him with cold, calculating eyes. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force," she said calmly. "You have entered our system with hostile intent. You will power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded." "Impossible," Admiral Cosvel snarled. "Your species is barely Class 7. You do not have this technology." Admiral Chen smiled, and it was not a friendly expression. "We had excellent teachers. Every probe you sent to study us over the past 50 years taught us something new. Every piece of your technology that crashed on our worlds was taken apart and understood. We are very good at learning." Another wave of weapons fire erupted from the hidden platforms. This time, Admiral Cosvel watched as his ship's shields were simply turned off. The energy patterns that maintained their defensive fields were being disrupted by some kind of jamming technology. "You learned to hack our systems?" he asked in disbelief. "We learned everything," Admiral Chen replied. "Your language, your technology, your weaknesses. Did you really think you could watch us for 50 years without us watching you back?" Admiral Cosvel's ship shook as another tungsten rod grazed their hull. Half his fleet was already disabled or destroyed. The rest were trapped between multiple rings of weapons that they could not see until it was too late. "Sir, what are your orders?" asked his second-in-command. The Admiral looked at his tactical display one more time. Red warning symbols covered the entire system. His sensors were showing energy readings that made no sense. The humans had weapons that were beyond anything his species had ever built. "Signal the fleet," he said quietly. "All ships that can still move are to retreat immediately. Maximum speed back to Council space." "Sir, what about the mission?" Admiral Cosvel looked at the human admiral on his screen. She was still smiling that cold smile. "The mission is over," he said. "Send a priority message to the Council. Tell them we were wrong about the humans. Tell them everything was wrong." As his remaining ships turned to flee, Admiral Cosvel heard Admiral Chen's voice one more time. "Give the Council a message from Earth," she said. "Tell them that humanity does not accept relocation. Tell them that any fleet that enters our system with hostile intent will be destroyed, and tell them that we know where they live." The connection cut off, and Admiral Cosvel's ship limped away from Earth as fast as its damaged engines could carry it. Behind him, the human weapons had gone silent again, disappearing back into the innocent-looking asteroids and moons where they had been hiding. But the Admiral knew they were still watching, still waiting, and probably still learning. As the surviving ships of his fleet escaped into hyperspace, Admiral Coswell began composing the most difficult report of his career. He had to tell the most powerful beings in the galaxy that they had just been defeated by a species they thought was barely smarter than animals. The galaxy was about to learn that humans were much more dangerous than anyone had imagined. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in the organization's 10,000-year history. The great crystal chamber buzzed with panic as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The impossible had happened, and no one knew what to do about it. Chief Council member Prima Lux floated at the center of the chaos, her energy form pulsing with stress patterns that made the chamber's lights flicker. Around her, the other 8 High Council members argued in a dozen different languages while hundreds of smaller delegates shouted from their floating platforms. "Order! Order!" Prima Lux's voice boomed through every translation device in the chamber. "We will have calm discussion or this session will end." The noise slowly died down as aliens settled back onto their platforms, but the fear in the air was thick enough to taste. "Admiral Coswell," Prima Lux called out, "present your report." The reptilian admiral stood on a platform near the center, his scales dull with shame and exhaustion. Half his body was wrapped in medical bandages from injuries suffered during his ship's escape from the Sol system. "Honored Council," he began, his voice barely above a whisper. The human resistance was beyond all expectations. They possessed weapons technology that should not exist. Energy-based attacks that could reach across stellar distances. Kinetic weapons with impossible accuracy. Stealth systems that made our best sensors useless. Angry voices erupted from the platforms. Several council members shouted at once, "Impossible! Class 7 species do not have such technology. Your fleet must have malfunctioned." Admiral Coswell waited for the noise to die down before continuing. "Honored Council, I have brought video evidence. With your permission?" Prima Lux pulsed agreement, and the chamber's holographic display came to life. 3-dimensional images filled the space above the platforms, showing the last moments of the hegemony fleet. The assembled aliens watched in stunned silence as human weapons tore through energy shields like they were not there. They saw asteroids reveal themselves as massive weapons platforms. They watched Earth's moon open up to expose guns the size of city blocks. But the most shocking moment came when the video showed human ships appearing from nowhere, moving with speed and precision that defied known physics. "By the eternal void," whispered Council Member Vex Prime. "How did they achieve such technology?" "They told me," Admiral Coswell said quietly. "Admiral Chen of their defense force claimed they learned from us. Every probe we sent, every crashed ship, every piece of our technology they could find. They studied it all and improved on it." The chamber erupted again. This time the anger was mixed with fear. "You are saying they reverse-engineered Class 15 technology from Class 7 understanding?" demanded Zarako of the hegemony. Her skin lights were flashing red with rage. "That is impossible, is it?" asked a new voice. Everyone turned to look at the speaker. It was Sage Mind Quaternary of the Ancient Archives, one of the oldest beings in the galaxy. His species was so old that no one remembered what they originally looked like. Now he existed as a collection of crystalline structures that held millions of years of memories. "Sage Mind speaks," Prima Lux announced. "The chamber will listen." The crystal being pulsed with ancient knowledge. In the early records, before the council was formed, there are mentions of species like this. Beings who could adapt and learn at impossible speeds. They were called the Fast Minds. "Legends," scoffed another council member. "Stories to frighten children." "Perhaps," Sage Mind Quaternary continued. "But the humans have displayed the key characteristic. They do not just learn technology. They improve it. Their minds work differently from ours. Where we see what is, they see what could be." Admiral Coswell nodded grimly. "Their admiral told me they had been preparing for 50 years. Every time we studied them, they were studying us back. They turned our own surveillance into a learning opportunity. The implications hit the chamber like a physical blow. If humans could learn and adapt that quickly, what would they be capable of in another 50 years? Or another 100? What did they want?" asked Prima Lux. "Did they make demands?" "They gave me a message," Admiral Coswell replied. "They said humanity does not accept relocation. Any fleet entering their system with hostile intent will be destroyed. And..." He paused, looking uncomfortable. "And what, Admiral?" "They said they know where we live." The silence that followed was broken only by the hum of the chamber's life support systems. Every being present understood what that meant. The humans had somehow learned the locations of council worlds. Impossible, Zariko said again, but her voice lacked conviction. They do not have faster-than-light travel. How could they threaten worlds across the galaxy? Perhaps they do have such travel now, suggested Sage Mind Quaternary.
If they can improve our weapons technology, why not our engines as well?
Prime Council member Tech Shar of the Void Watchers, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. His species looked like living shadows with too many eyes. I have disturbing news to add to this discussion. 3 of our deep space monitoring stations have gone dark in the past 12 hours, all in different sectors, all reporting technical malfunctions just before losing contact. The fear in the chamber became palpable. Every species present had worlds and colonies to protect. If the humans could strike anywhere in the galaxy, nowhere was safe. We must send a full battle fleet to destroy them before they become more dangerous, declared War Chief Braktok of the warrior clans, whose species looked like walking armored tanks with energy weapons for hands. 10,000 ships. Enough firepower to crack their planet. And if they have prepared defenses for such an attack? Asked Primalux. If they can defeat 12 ships, what might they have ready for 10,000? Then we send 100,000, Braktok roared. We mobilize every ship in council space. This threat must be eliminated. Must it? The question came from an unexpected source. Healer Prime Melody of the Peaceful Ones rarely spoke in council sessions. Her species had given up violence millions of years ago, choosing instead to help other beings. What do you mean, Healer Prime? Asked Primalux. The humans defeated our fleet, but they did not pursue and destroy it. They let Admiral Cosvel escape to bring us their message. They had the power to kill us all, but chose not to. Perhaps they do not wish to be our enemies. They attacked our ships, Braktok protested. Our ships attacked first, Healer Prime Melody replied calmly. We came to take their world. They defended it. Who is the aggressor here? The question hung in the air like a challenge. For 10,000 years, the Council had been the ultimate authority in the galaxy. They decided which species lived and which died, which worlds were protected and which were harvested for resources. Now, for the first time, someone had said no. Someone had fought back and won. The question, said Primalux slowly, is what do we do now? We negotiate, suggested Healer Prime Melody. We send ambassadors instead of weapons. We try to understand them. We destroy them, countered War Chief Braktok. Before they destroy us. We wait, said Sage Mind Quaternary. We watch, we learn, just as they did with us. Primalux looked around the chamber at hundreds of species, all looking to the Council for guidance. But for the first time in her long existence, she had no answers. The humans had changed everything. The galaxy would never be the same. This session is adjourned, she announced finally. All council members will return to their home systems and prepare their defenses. We will reconvene when we have more information. As the aliens began filing out of the chamber, each returning to their ships and their worlds, one thought was on every mind. What were the humans planning next? Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the command center of Luna Base, watching displays that showed the entire galaxy. Red dots marked council fleet movements as thousands of ships rushed back to protect their home worlds. Green dots showed human monitoring stations that had been secretly placed throughout council space over the past 50 years. Status report, she said to her staff. All deep space platforms are operational, replied Commander Park, her intelligence chief. We are tracking over 15,000 council ships moving to defensive positions. Several species are evacuating their outer colonies. Good, Admiral Chen nodded. They are scared. Scared enemies make mistakes. She turned to another officer. What about the diplomatic channels? 47 different species have sent messages requesting talks, reported Lieutenant Zhang. Most are offering trade agreements or non-aggression pacts. A few are asking for protection from the Council. Admiral Chen smiled. This was exactly what she had hoped for. The galaxy was not a single unified entity, despite what the Council pretended. It was hundreds of different species with thousands of different interests. Many of them had been oppressed by the Council for centuries, forced to give up their resources and follow rules they had no voice in making. Now those species saw that the Council could be challenged, could be defeated, and they wanted to be on the winning side. Ma'am, called out Sergeant Rodriguez from the communication station. Priority message coming in from the Zephyrian Collective. They are requesting immediate sanctuary for their refugee fleet. The Zephyrians? Admiral Chen raised an eyebrow. I thought they were extinct. Apparently not, Commander Park replied, pulling up files on his screen. According to this message, about 2 million of them escaped when the Council destroyed their home world. They have been hiding in dead systems for the past 300 years. Admiral Chen felt a familiar anger burning in her chest. This was why humanity had spent 50 years preparing for war. The Council did not just relocate troublesome species. Sometimes they simply eliminated them entirely. Then they pretended it never happened. Send reply, she ordered. Tell the Zephyrians they are welcome in Sol system. We will provide escort ships to guide them safely here. Ma'am? Lieutenant Zhang looked worried. That will mean protecting an entire refugee fleet from Council forces. Are we ready for that kind of operation? Zhang, we have been ready for this for decades, Admiral Chen replied. Signal all deep space platforms. It is time for Phase 2. Across the galaxy, things that had been hiding in asteroid fields and dead worlds came to life. Ships that looked like space debris powered up their engines. Weapons platforms that had been drifting silent and cold for years began charging their energy systems. Humanity had not just prepared to defend Earth. They had prepared to bring the fight to the Council. On the hegemony homeworld of Kes Prime, Admiral Zarako stood in her species' military command center, watching reports flow in from across their territory. Her skin lights were flashing orange with worry. Admiral, we have lost contact with Mining Station 7 in the outer reaches, reported one of her officers. Last transmission mentioned technical failures before going dark. Another one? Zarako's lights shifted to red. That makes 6 stations in the past day. These cannot all be coincidences. No, ma'am. Intelligence believes the humans are behind it. Somehow they are sabotaging our operations without being detected. Zarako studied the tactical map on her screen. Red X marks showed where hegemony installations had gone offline. They were scattered across multiple star systems, making no obvious pattern. How are they doing this? She muttered. Their ships cannot possibly travel this far this fast. Her answer came in the form of an emergency alert from their deepest space sensors. Admiral, multiple unknown contacts jumping into the system. They are not using any known FTL signatures. Zarako spun to look at the main display. Dozens of ships were appearing at the edge of the Kes Prime system. But these were not the primitive chemical rockets their scouts had reported. These ships were sleek and fast, moving with precision that made her military fleet look clumsy. All ships to battle stations, she ordered. Launch the planetary defense fleet. But as her ships moved to intercept the human fleet, something unexpected happened. The human ships split up, each one heading toward a different location in the system. They were not coming to attack the planet. They were heading for the industrial stations and mining platforms scattered throughout the system. They are going after our infrastructure, realized her tactical officer. They want to cripple our ability to support fleet operations. Zarako watched helplessly as human ships began systematically destroying the economic backbone of her species. Mining platforms that had taken decades to build were being reduced to scrap metal in minutes. Return fire. All ships engage. Her fleet tried to respond, but the human ships were too fast and too smart. They knew exactly where to hit to cause maximum damage with minimum effort. Somehow they had complete intelligence on every hegemony installation in the system. Admiral, incoming transmission from the lead human ship, her communications officer reported. Put it on screen. The face that appeared was human, but not Admiral Chen. This was a younger woman with dark hair and cold eyes that looked familiar. I am Captain Lisa Park of the Earth Defense Force, the woman said. You have 60 seconds to evacuate your industrial platforms before we destroy them. You dare threaten us in our own system? Zarako's lights flashed with outrage. We are not threatening, Captain Park replied calmly. We are informing. Your people sent ships to steal our world. Now we are returning the favor. 60 seconds, Admiral. The transmission cut off and Zarako faced an impossible choice. She could order her people to abandon billions of credits worth of infrastructure, or she could watch them die defending it. All civilian personnel evacuate immediately, she ordered finally. Military units maintained defensive positions. She watched as escape pods launched from dozens of platforms throughout the system. Her own people, fleeing from enemies who had appeared from nowhere. When the 60 seconds were up, the human ships opened fire with weapons that seemed to bend space itself. Energy beams reached across impossible distances to strike their targets with surgical precision. In minutes, the economic heart of the hegemony home system was reduced to floating debris. But the worst part was what happened next. As quickly as they had appeared, the human ships vanished again. Their FTL signatures were unlike anything in the Council databases, making it impossible to track where they had gone. Captain Park's voice came over the communication system one more time. "This was a demonstration," she said. "The hegemony will withdraw all ships from human space and cease all aggressive operations against refugee species. You have 72 hours to comply. If you do not, we will return and target your shipyards next." Then they were gone, leaving Zarako staring at the wreckage of her species' industrial might. Similar attacks were happening throughout Council space. Human ships appeared without warning, struck strategic targets, and vanished before effective resistance could be organized. They were not trying to conquer planets or kill civilians. They were systematically destroying the Council's ability to project power across the galaxy, and it was working. Back on Luna Base, Admiral Chen watched reports flow in from across known space. Operation Prometheus was proceeding exactly as planned. "Status of the refugee evacuations?" she asked. 17 different species have requested sanctuary," Commander Park reported. "The Zephyrians, the singing crystals of Melodia, the gentle giants of Pacifica, and others. Total population approaching 10 million beings. And our deep space platforms? All operational. Council forces are trying to hunt them down, but our stealth technology is holding. They cannot find what they cannot see." Admiral Chen nodded with satisfaction. The galaxy was learning that humanity was not just another primitive species to be pushed around. They were a force that could strike anywhere, anytime, without warning. But more importantly, they were a species that stood up for the weak and oppressed. Word was spreading through the underground networks that connected the galaxy's refugees and outcasts. Earth was a place where beings could be free from Council oppression. "Ma'am," Lieutenant Zhang looked up from his station. "Long-range sensors are detecting a massive fleet movement. It looks like the Council is gathering ships for a major offensive." "How many ships?" "Preliminary count shows over 50,000 vessels converging on rally points. Multiple species all heading toward Sol system." Admiral Chen felt a thrill of anticipation. This was what they had been preparing for all along. The final test of everything humanity had built. "Signal all platforms," she ordered. "Time for Phase 3. Send the coordinates to the Council fleet." "Ma'am?" "You heard me, Zhang. We are going to invite them to a demonstration. Send them coordinates for the dead system at grid reference Omega 7. Tell them if they want to see what humanity is really capable of, they should meet us there." "All of them, ma'am? 50,000 ships?" Admiral Chen smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "All of them, Lieutenant. It is time to show the galaxy that the age of the Council is over." The dead system at grid reference Omega 7 had been empty for millions of years. Ancient stars had burned out long ago, leaving only cold rocks drifting in the darkness. It was the perfect place for what Admiral Sarah Chen had planned. The Council armada that gathered there was the largest military force in galactic history. 50,000 ships from dozens of different species, enough firepower to crack planets and boil away atmospheres. War Chief Braktok commanded from his massive flagship, surrounded by the greatest warriors the galaxy had ever produced. "This is madness," muttered Admiral Zarako from her own command ship. "Why are we here? Why did the humans invite us to this empty system?" "Because they want to surrender," Braktok's voice boomed across the communication channels. "They have seen our might and know they cannot win. We will accept nothing less than their complete submission." But Sage-Mind Quaternary, watching from his crystalline vessel, was not so confident. The humans have not acted predictably so far. Why would they start now? The answer came as energy signatures began appearing throughout the system. Not dozens like the ambush at Earth, not hundreds. Thousands of contacts were powering up all around them. "Sir," called out Braktok's tactical officer, "I am reading massive energy sources throughout the system. Whatever is here, it has been hiding from our sensors." As the Council fleet watched in growing horror, the empty system revealed itself to be anything but empty. Asteroids that had looked dead for eons suddenly came alive with lights and energy patterns. What they had taken for space debris was actually a vast network of construction platforms and manufacturing facilities. "By the eternal void," whispered Admiral Zarako. "How long have they been building here?" Her answer came in the form of a transmission from what looked like a small moon, orbiting one of the dead planets. But as the object moved into better light, they could see it was not natural. It was a space station the size of a city, covered with docking ports and communication arrays. The face that appeared on their screens was Admiral Sarah Chen, but she was not alone. Standing beside her were beings from dozens of different species. Some the Council recognized as supposedly extinct races, others were unknown, species that had been hiding in the galaxy's dark corners for centuries. "Welcome to New Geneva Station," Admiral Chen said calmly, "the capital of the Free Worlds Alliance." "Impossible," Braktok snarled. "You are Class 7 primitives. You cannot have built this in 50 years. "You are right," Admiral Chen replied. "We could not have built this alone." But we were not alone. The camera pulled back to show the full scope of the station's command center. Beings that looked like living crystals worked alongside humans at control stations. Creatures that appeared to be made of pure energy floated beside insectoid aliens with metallic wings. In the background, massive viewports showed construction yards where ships were being built by species the Council had thought were extinct. "Allow me to introduce some of our partners," Admiral Chen continued. "The Zephyrian Collective, who you tried to eliminate 300 years ago. The Crystal Singers of Melodia, who you enslaved for their ability to grow living starships. The Void Whisperers, who you banned from the galaxy for refusing to share their dimensional technology." Each name hit the Council fleet like a physical blow. These were species that had been written off as dead, eliminated, or exiled, but somehow they had survived, hidden in the dark spaces between the stars, waiting for someone brave enough to challenge the Council's authority. "They have been our teachers," Admiral Chen explained. "Just as your probes taught us about your technology, these species taught us about yours. Crystal Singer biotechnology, Void Whisper dimensional manipulation, Zephyrian energy shields that can stop anything you can throw at them. You have been preparing this for centuries." Sage Mind Quaternary's ancient voice carried a note of something like respect. "Not just 50 years. You have been planning this since before we discovered your world." "Not us," Admiral Chen corrected. "Our predecessors. Humans who saw what the Council did to species that would not submit. We decided long ago that humanity would never kneel to tyrants, no matter how powerful they claimed to be." Around the Council fleet, more installations came online. Manufacturing platforms that had been building ships in secret for decades. Weapons platforms with firepower that dwarfed anything in the Council arsenal. Mining operations that had been secretly stripping entire asteroid belts to build the Free Worlds Alliance. "You see," Admiral Chen continued, "you made a critical error. You assumed that because we appeared primitive, we actually were primitive. You never considered that we might be hiding our true capabilities. You never thought that other species might be doing the same thing. This is treason against the Galactic Order," Braktok roared. "We will destroy you all." "With what?" Admiral Chen asked calmly. "Your ships? Your weapons? Your soldiers? Look around you, War Chief. You are surrounded by an industrial complex that has been growing for 2 centuries. We can build ships faster than you can destroy them. We can train crews faster than you can kill them. And we have allies throughout your own territories who are ready to rise up the moment you show weakness." As if to prove her point, new contacts began appearing on the Council fleet's sensors. Ships bearing the insignia of minor Council species were jumping into the system. But these ships were not coming to support the Council. They were joining the human formation. "The Free Worlds Alliance is not just humans and refugees," Admiral Chen explained. "It includes any species that wants to be free from Council oppression, including many of your own member worlds." Admiral Zarako watched her tactical display with growing despair. The numbers were impossible. The humans and their allies outnumbered the Council fleet by more than 10 to 1, and their technology was clearly superior. "What do you want?" she asked quietly. "Peace," Admiral Chen replied, "but not the peace of the conquered. We want a galaxy where every species has the right to choose its own path, where no one can be forced to give up their world because someone else wants their resources, where refugees can find sanctuary instead of death." "The Council will never agree to this," Braktok said, but his voice lacked its earlier confidence. "The Council no longer has a choice," Admiral Chen replied. "Your fleets are outnumbered and outgunned. Your industrial bases are under attack throughout your territories. Your own member species are joining us instead of you. The old order is dying, War Chief. The question is whether it dies peacefully or violently." Sage Mind Quaternary's crystals pulsed with ancient sadness. "We ruled for 10,000 years. We brought order to chaos. We created the greatest civilization in galactic history. You created a system where the strong oppressed the weak, Admiral Chen corrected. Where entire species could be eliminated with a vote. Where refugees were hunted across the galaxy instead of helped. That is not civilization. That is tyranny. The silence that followed was broken by an unexpected voice. Healer Prime Melody of the Peaceful Ones, who had barely spoken during the crisis, transmitted from her medical ship. I propose we accept their terms, she said quietly. What? Braktok spun toward her ship. You would surrender to these primitives? I would choose peace over pointless war, Melody replied. Our fleets are defeated. Our member worlds are rebelling. We can fight and die for a system that was already broken, or we can work with these beings to build something better. One by one, other council members began to speak. Not the High Council, who were too proud to admit defeat, but the smaller voices. The species who had been forced to follow council law but had never truly believed in it. The Aquatic Kingdom support the Healer Prime, transmitted Ambassador Depthsinger. We have seen enough war. The Hive Collective agrees, came another voice. Conflict serves no purpose when survival is at stake. Admiral Chen watched as the greatest military force in galactic history slowly came apart through politics rather than battle. Species after species declared their support for negotiations instead of war. Finally, only the core council species remained loyal to the old system. And they were faced with an impossible choice: fight a war they could not win, or accept that their 10,000 years of dominance were over. The humans will regret this day, War Chief Braktok transmitted finally. You think you can build a better galaxy? You will learn that peace is harder to maintain than war. Perhaps, Admiral Chen replied. But we are willing to try. The Free Worlds Alliance is open to any species that wants to join us in building that better galaxy, including yours, War Chief, when you are ready. As the Council fleet began to withdraw broken and defeated, Admiral Chen turned to her command staff. Around her, beings from dozens of species worked together to coordinate the largest peaceful transition of power in galactic history. Status. Report, she said. Refugee fleets are arriving from 18 different systems, reported Commander Park. Total. Population now approaching 50 million beings seeking sanctuary. Our new allies are providing temporary housing on their worlds while we construct permanent colonies. And the industrial platforms? Operating at full capacity. We will have a full fleet of defense ships within 6 months. Within 2 years, we will have the capability to protect any system that asks for our help. Admiral Chen nodded with satisfaction.